I believe that asking the right questions is what takes us higher and lets us into that next level of the game we call our lives. I'm signed up to the Daily Stoic newsletter, so even if I miss a few days in my Daily Stoic journal, Ryan's still dropping into my inbox with gems from Seneca, like, where are we choosing to make life harder for ourselves? So what does this have to do with the biggest lesson I've learned in the last 6 months of being a stock photographer? Hey guys, welcome back. And if YouTube's just introducing us, my name's Tracy from Red in the World Photography. And my goal this year was to test out about 10 different income streams that worked around me being a homeschooling mum to 3 monkeys. So my basic checklist was no long hours shooting weddings, nothing that required me to be gone for long periods of time, things I could do mainly from home, and things I could work into my weekly routine alongside the kids. Stock photography was the lowest hanging fruit option. And to be honest, I had years worth of photos backed up that needed to be finished and edited. So it was kind of a win-win, a clean out and getting some photographs. Today's stock report is going to be a reflection on the first 6 months of my journey as a stock photographer and the massive, huge lesson I learned only last week. It's totally changing the way I'm approaching, well, everything. I knew early on that the only way I was going to have the year that was going to make up for the past crappy 6 or 7 years, was if I threw myself all at it. I asked for a huge, all in every aspect of my life this year. And I knew it was going to be messy as hell until I got systems in place around everything that I was doing, which is why I figured if I just introduced one new thing a month, it would kind of give me the chance to ease into doing it all, I think. I knew that all my new routines were going to have to work together, or I would end up burnt out, running around like a chick with my head cut off, etc. Whatever the outcome, I had to go all in on every aspect of my life to see a completely new view by the end of this year. January and February kind of started out fairly easy. I just knew that every week I had to get through around about a year's worth of cleaning up and editing old photos. Then I'd upload them to the stock sites, and I was quite pleased to get about 200 photos out of that. So in January, I introduced stock photos, and in February, I did my very first YouTube for the year. And then March was meant to be starting to take photos and getting into videography as well. But that got halted. We had some family issues in March and April that took priority, and I really lost my momentum. So no photos, no YouTubes, no uploads. Now, I'm also not saying this as a oh poor me. I asked this year to be the year to get through all the lessons that have been holding me back for years. You know how Americans say all the things? Well, for me, this year was all the lessons. One of the biggest lessons I realized that I was never getting past was this. I'm the kind of person that would like to just keep learning until I know everything and then go and do it, which has actually stopped me from doing everything. It's kind of like how being a perfectionist can stall you in life as well. Here's a quick story, and maybe you'll see some of yourself in this too. About 13 years ago when I was 30, I went to university to learn about marketing and management, and I loved it. I found it totally fascinating. But I realized pretty quickly that what was actually pulling at me was social media marketing and online marketing, which was a totally new space. It was 2011, Facebook was only a couple of years old by that point, and we'd not long got out of our MySpace era. And yes, I am MySpace level old. And you know, while I was scripting this, I went and I Googled it. MySpace still exists. I threw myself into it outside of doing university stuff, to the point that I was getting up at 4 o'clock in the mornings before my then 1-year-old and 4-year-old were getting up, just to be able to get a couple of hours research in. I really wanted to start a blog and talk about this thing that I was researching and that I was excited about and that I was pumped to be learning about. But I was afraid that I didn't know enough, and then people would trust me, and then I'd tell them something wrong, and then I'd feel really bad because I'd pushed someone in the wrong direction. So I kept learning and reading and downloading every possible freebie I could get my hands on and doing mini courses, but not actually stepping up and doing it. A couple of years later, like in 2013 or 2014, I came across this blog. Now, they were talking about basically the same stuff that I wanted to talk about. They'd been doing it for about 3 years, and they were sharing their income reports of what they were making on their blog, which was essentially a full-time income. And it really hit me that if I had just started when I had originally wanted to, I could have been in the same situation. It was about the same time that I did start my own blog, and I really pushed, and I got about 50 blog posts written, but then I never released it for the exact same reason. I just couldn't get over the fact that I might inadvertently give the wrong advice. I've always felt pulled to share what I've learned in life. I've had some incredible influences in my life that have shaped who I am over the years. And all I ever wanted was to pay that forward, to be that for somebody else. Now, the moral of all of this is that this year I decided to throw myself into all of it. Memento mori, as the Stoics say, and document my journey, the good, the bad, the ugly, the lessons, to talk about both what I do know and the lessons that I'm learning along the way. So with that as a base, let's jump into the stock photography specific lessons that I've learned in the first 6 months. First of all, I just want to say that if you're sitting on the sidelines wondering if a stock is for you, just do it. Give yourself a year, set your target of like 1,000 images and just go for it. You're basically going to learn one of 3 things. 1, worst case scenario, you're going to hate the grind and you're going to realize it's just not where you want to put your time and energy. Or you're going to realize it's kind of boring, you can't be bothered, and it's not quite as interesting as you thought it was going to be. Sweet. Now you know. Let it go and go do something that does light you up. Number 2, you're going to love it. You're going to succeed at it and you're going to be like, oh my gosh, why didn't I start this earlier? Or number 3, you're going to love it, but you're not quite going to succeed at it, but you know you love it enough to keep going with it. I currently fall into category 3, but I'm aiming for category 2. And the biggest lesson I've learned in the last 6 months only hit me about a week ago when I was reading my daily Stoic morning email. Where are we choosing to make life harder for ourselves? My first thought was stressing over my stock images and stressing over the house being a mess and stressing over not spending enough time with my 7-year-old and that I still have client work outstanding and having all of these separate pieces of my life that I feel like I'm trying to fit in and feeling like I'm failing at all of them because there just aren't enough hours in the day. I think if you're a parent, you totally get that no matter what you're doing, you feel guilty for not doing something else. Like if you're doing housework, you feel guilty for not spending time with the kids. And if you're sitting down and watching a movie with the kids, you feel guilty because the dishes still need to be done and you need to change the sheets and you haven't done that for a couple of weeks and it's exhausting. And then you're at burnout and then you just need a night to sit and watch Vampire Diaries and chill, but then you feel guilty for taking the time to do that. And that might sound silly, but this is a super important factor as to why I started doing stock photography in the first place. I wanted to find sustainable ways to do it all. For me, that's stock photography, YouTube, other photography that I want to get into. So where am I choosing to make life harder for myself? That was the whole point at the beginning of this year for me, is how do I integrate everything into my life? So here's the new secret. I just do the things I need to do and photograph creatively while I'm doing it. Super simple, dumb, right? Like, duh. So I baked with my 7-year-old the other day and I was halfway through. We'd already made the biscuits and we were icing them. And I was like, I should pull my camera out. I thought, how can I do this in 5 or 6 different ways so I can absolutely maximize this cookie making experience, basically. And I got 17 photos out of it that I put up on stock sites that day. Stock photography is ultimately about creating images for things that people want to talk about. And how many lifestyle blogs are there in the world? How many blogs are there on parenting? And what are they looking up? In this busy world, you've got parents spending time with their kids. So I could have got some photos of my daughter and I doing the baking together. In a world where kids are stuck to their devices, we're searching things like tech-free time or kids being kids. In a world where kids are stuck to their devices, we could have kids baking or skills children should have. Or yesterday when I organised the girls to lay on their beds. One was reading, one was playing with some toys. So kids being kids or no technology time, which is a huge push at the moment. And I just set up those scenarios while I was cleaning up. Obviously, these aren't great keywords, but this is what people are talking about. This is what blogs are being written about. This is what social media posts are being written about, and they need stock photography to go with them. Truthfully, what I was actually doing was cleaning our top floor. So I thought, what are the photos that I could get in here while I'm cleaning up? And it made me think creatively about it. This became my new thought pattern. Why not get photos of the beds looking all nice and tidy? We've got an interesting gable wall, so why not try and get some of that so people can use it as backgrounds? Not to mention then getting the girls up and doing a shoot on no technology. And then I took this whole integration thing to a whole new level because I'm really crappy at staying on social media and actually staying active on it. So I was like, hey, I could post up some stories on here too. So there's a few Instagram stories up there from yesterday as well. So instead of going through all the current trend reports, much of which I actually don't even have access to be able to photograph, since so much of it right now is about diversity, I thought there's all these really super popular evergreen topics that I could absolutely be a part of. Kids, life, work, coffee, creator economy, all things that I can do from home. So ask yourself, what am I doing today? Am I doing the dishes? Could I photograph it in an interesting way? Could I get photos of bubbles in the sink, I know it sounds super dumb, but I just looked it up because there are mums out there that will be writing family-related blogs and they will be wanting to find photos of the kitchen sink. The lesson here is that we overlook the mundane, everyday life, trying to figure out what the next big trend is. And it might not even be something that we have access to in our life right now, and it makes the barrier to entry so much harder. So when you're going on and you're looking up trend reports and you're like, I can't do that because I don't have access to that, so maybe I shouldn't do it. It puts up an unrealistic idea of what you can do because the mundane, everyday still is necessary. So the next 6 months are going to look like me photographing our lives in creative ways. We also decided as a family that we have a no direct face rule for stock photography, basically because you just never know what they're going to be used for. So I do have to get a little bit creative because I'm often seeing the kids from behind or from side on. I do see a lot of stock photography with kids' faces in them, so I think it's really a personal question to ask yourself. Anyway, going back to our dishes thing, the dishes piled up. The kids doing the dishes, the siblings working together, the little ones standing on the chair or the block to be able to reach the sink, to be able to help. Bubbles in our black sink with maybe, white cups and plates and things like that, just to give it a bit of a dynamic look to it. Top down, side on, wide shot, close up, and then video, vertical, horizontal, wide, tight. Who knows, in 6 months I might be crushing it in the kitchen sink genre. So going back to this big lesson, where are you making things harder in life than they have to be? I only got one sale in June, which was $1 through Adobe. So my total so far for the first 6 months, $1.57 on Adobe, $4.41 on Shutterstock, and 17 cents on deposit photos. Still haven't made any sales on LME or Pond5, bringing us to a grand total of 225 images uploaded and $6.15 in sales across 5 platforms. But I know that I can't judge this until I've got at least 1,000 images up and that I'm uploading on a regular basis because it's been pretty patchy this year. Over the second half of 2024, I'm going to keep doing these stock reports and what I'm learning along the way, but I'm also going to be moving this channel into talking about other income streams that I'm going to be testing out so that we can just keep learning together. My hope is that watching someone else go from the ground up, testing, fading, succeeding hopefully, and sharing it all, it'll inspire someone else to take a step forward, especially those of us that don't want to put a foot wrong, so we don't put a foot forward at all. Honestly, I just hope that my journey allows someone else's journey. Now, I say this every time, but it's true. There is always room in the stock landscape for more contributors. So take that step, and I'll see you next time.